Record scratch. You think you know what terror looks like? Try being trapped in 12 feet of ice-cold water with a 10,000-pound killing machine that's just decided you're no longer its friend. What I'm about to tell you will haunt your nightmares and make you question everything you thought you knew about those friendly marine shows. This is the absolutely horrifying true story of Maris Ellington, a 27-year-old marine biologist whose final performance became a bloodbath that shocked the world and changed the entertainment industry forever. And trust me, what happened to Maris at Blue Horizon Oceanic Park wasn't just an accident. It was a disaster waiting to happen, ignored by greedy executives who cared more about ticket sales than human lives. Picture this: San Diego, California, home to one of the most popular marine attractions on the West Coast. Blue Horizon Oceanic Park was the crown jewel of family entertainment, drawing hundreds of thousands of visitors every single year who came to witness the spectacular shows featuring dolphins, sea lions, and the park's absolute superstar, Neptune, a massive 20-foot-long male orca weighing in at a terrifying 10,000 pounds. This wasn't just any whale, people. Neptune was the park's golden goose, generating millions in revenue and serving as the face of their marketing campaigns. Families would plan entire vacations around seeing this magnificent beast perform his death-defying stunts, with human trainers who seem to have formed an unbreakable bond with nature's most powerful predator. But here's where this story takes a dark turn that'll make your skin crawl. Behind the scenes at Blue Horizon, something sinister was brewing. Neptune, the park's beloved cash cow, was displaying increasingly disturbing behavioral changes that had veteran staff members literally shaking in their boots. We're talking about a creature that had shown aggression, suddenly engaging in violent tail slapping, blatantly refusing commands from trainers he'd worked with for years, and exhibiting signs of psychological distress that should have sent every alarm bell in the facility screaming. Senior trainers were reporting these warning signs to management, begging them to suspend Neptune's performances until they could figure out what was wrong with this massive predator. And what did the executives at Blue Horizon do with these life-or-death warnings? They ignored them completely. The money was too good, the crowds were too big, and the thought of disappointing tourists was apparently more terrifying to them than the possibility of a trainer being mauled to death by an increasingly unstable apex predator. It gets worse. When the park's most experienced senior trainer couldn't take the pressure anymore and actually resigned in protest over the dangerous conditions, management simply promoted someone else and kept the shows running. They were literally playing Russian roulette with human lives, and they knew it. Enter Maris Ellington. And this is where my heart just breaks for this incredible woman who deserved so much better. At just 27 years old, Maris was living her absolute dream as a marine biologist from Oregon who had dedicated her entire life to working with marine mammals. This wasn't some minimum wage employee who stumbled into the job. Maris was a highly educated professional who genuinely believed she could make a difference in the lives of these magnificent creatures. She had worked her way up through the ranks, building relationships with the animals, and earning respect from her colleagues through years of dedication and passion. But here's the tragic irony that'll make you furious. Maris was so confident in her abilities and so trusting of Neptune that she dismissed the warnings from other trainers. She genuinely believed she had a special connection with this massive predator that would keep her safe. The day that changed everything started like any other afternoon show at Blue Horizon. Families packed the stadium, kids clutching cotton candy and stuffed orcas, completely unaware they were about to witness something that would traumatize them for the rest of their lives. The show began smoothly, with Neptune performing his usual repertoire of jumps, spins, and synchronized swimming routines that had made him famous. Maris was in her element, commanding the attention of both the massive whale and the cheering crowd with the confidence of someone who had done this routine thousands of times before. For the first 20 minutes, everything seemed perfect. Just another day at the office for one of the marine entertainment industry's rising stars. But then came the finale, and this is where everything went catastrophically wrong in the most horrifying way imaginable. The routine called for Maris and Neptune to perform their signature synchronized swim, a breathtaking display where trainer and whale moved through the water in perfect harmony that always brought audiences to their feet. Maris entered the water with complete confidence, probably thinking about how smoothly the show had gone and looking forward to the thunderous applause that always followed their performances. Neptune approached her just as he had hundreds of times before, and for a split second, it seemed like everything was going according to plan. Then, without any warning whatsoever, Neptune suddenly changed course. In an instant, this gentle giant transformed into something out of your worst nightmares. The massive orca lunged at Maris with terrifying speed and power, clamping his enormous jaws around her midsection with bone-crushing force. The audience, who had been cheering just moments before, fell into shocked silence as they realized they weren't watching part of the show. They were witnessing a real-life horror movie unfolding before their eyes. Children started screaming, parents covered their kids' eyes, and the entire stadium erupted into chaos as Neptune began thrashing Maris around like a rag doll in his powerful jaws. What happened next was pure nightmare fuel that I can barely bring myself to describe. For over 60 seconds, which might not sound like long, but imagine being trapped underwater for an entire minute while being violently shaken by a creature that could snap you in half without even trying. Neptune dragged Maris to the bottom of the pool and began what can only be described as a savage attack. The other trainers immediately sprang into action, using every distraction technique they knew to try to get Neptune's attention, but nothing worked. This wasn't the playful, trained whale they thought they knew. This was a wild predator who had finally snapped after years of captivity and forced performances. The rescue attempts were heroic but ultimately futile. Trainers threw fish, used noisemakers, and even entered the water themselves to try to save Maris, but Neptune was completely focused on his victim. Witnesses described the water turning red as Neptune continued his relentless attack, thrashing and rolling with Maris trapped in his jaws. The sound of the crowd's screams mixed with the splashing water created an audio nightmare that haunted everyone who was there that day. By the time Neptune finally released his grip and the rescue team could pull Maris from the water, it was already too late. Maris Ellington was pronounced dead at the scene, her body bearing the horrific evidence of what happens when a human being goes up against one of nature's most powerful predators. The park immediately evacuated all guests, and emergency responders flooded the facility. But there was nothing anyone could do to bring back this brilliant young woman, whose only crime was trusting in a bond that should never have existed in the first place. The official cause of death was listed as massive internal trauma and drowning, clinical terms that barely scratch the surface of the horror. Or that unfolded that day, but the tragedy didn't end with Maris's death. Oh no, it gets so much worse when you realize how completely avoidable this entire disaster was. Within hours of the attack, lawyers were swarming the park, families were filing lawsuits, and the media was digging into Blue Horizon's safety record with results that would make your blood boil. It turned out that Neptune's behavioral changes weren't isolated incidents. They were part of a documented pattern of increasing aggression that management had been covering up for months. Internal documents revealed that multiple trainers had reported safety concerns, veterinarians had recommended removing Neptune from shows, and insurance companies had actually flagged the park as high risk. The wrongful death lawsuit that followed exposed the ugly truth about how marine entertainment parks really operate. Maris's family discovered that Blue Horizon had been prioritizing profit over safety for years, ignoring expert recommendations and silencing employees who tried to speak up about dangerous conditions. The settlement amount was never disclosed, but sources close to the case say it was substantial enough to bankrupt the park's insurance company and leave Blue Horizon facing financial ruin. Within 2 years of Maris's death, Blue Horizon Oceanic Park had permanently suspended all orca shows, laid off most of its staff, and was struggling to stay afloat financially. The public had lost trust in marine entertainment. Activists were protesting outside the gates daily, and corporate sponsors were fleeing faster than rats from a sinking ship. Eventually, the park declared bankruptcy and closed its doors forever, becoming a ghost town of empty pools and abandoned stadiums that served as a monument to corporate greed and one young woman's preventable death. As for Neptune, the whale who had once been the park's beloved star became a symbol of everything wrong with keeping wild predators in captivity. He was eventually transferred to a marine sanctuary, where experts hoped he could live out his remaining years in a more natural environment. But the damage was already done, not just to Neptune's psyche, but to an entire industry built on the dangerous fantasy that wild animals can be turned into willing performers. The death of Maris Ellington sent shockwaves through the marine entertainment world and sparked a global conversation about the ethics and safety of keeping orcas in captivity. Her tragic story became a rallying cry for animal rights activists and a wake-up call for anyone who had ever bought a ticket to watch these magnificent creatures perform tricks for human entertainment. The truth is, what happened to Maris wasn't an accident or a freak incident. It was the inevitable result of forcing wild predators to live and perform in completely unnatural conditions. Today, Maris Ellington's legacy lives on through the safety regulations and animal welfare laws that were passed in response to her death. But for those who knew and loved her, no amount of legal reform can bring back the brilliant young scientist whose life was cut tragically short by an induce straw that valued profits more than people. Her story serves as a haunting reminder that some bonds between humans and animals should never be tested. It belongs only in the wild.